Not seeing my videos in your subscription feed? Make sure you've clicked the little bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of all my newest uploads. Hey, what's up, people? Piz out here, and let's talk about the demise of Friday the 13th, 2017. Now, it was announced just last night, February 6th. And how's this for a 1-2 punch? It was first announced that Friday the 13th, 2017 had been pulled from its October 13th release date by Paramount. Now, while fans were trying to process this information, news sources began to report that Paramount had axed the production entirely. They'd pulled the plug on Friday the 13th, 2017 indefinitely. Friday the 13th, 2017 is dead. Unequivocally dead. It's over. There will be no Friday the 13th, 2017 from Paramount and Platinum Dunes. And as optimistic as a lot of fans were about this new Friday the 13th movie, especially over the course of the past couple of months, in which they had a script locked from Prisoner screenwriter Aaron Guzikowski. They brought a director on board, Breck Eisner, who directed 2010's The Crazies remake. They had a production date set, a filming date set for March of this year, a release date scheduled for October 13th of this year. They were sending out casting calls for young Jason, for Jason's father. It seemed like Friday the 13th, 2017 was on the fast track to finally seeing the light of day. And now it's dead. It's done. The dream is over. Now, initially, news sources began to cite the reasoning behind Friday the 13th, 2017 being axed by Paramount had to do with the lackluster box office returns for Paramount's Rings movie, which opened last weekend. When I first heard this, I called BS. Now, granted, we're talking about studio executives here. They could care less about the movie. They could care less about the franchise. They could care less about the fans. They want a sure, sound investment that's going to return them the most profit. Period. Even then, I'm thinking, surely they know. You can't judge how much a Friday the 13th movie is going to make at the box office compared to how much a Rings or a Ring movie is going to make at the box office. They're two very different films. They're two very different series. They're two very different fan bases. And keep in mind, too, it's not like Rings tanked. Rings brought in $12-13 million. Now, granted, it cost $23-25 million to make. It may not make back that budget, but the studio doesn't see that as, well, we made a bad movie. The studio doesn't see that as, well, reviews are bad, word of mouth is bad, and that's why this movie is going to sink like a stone after opening weekend. It has nothing to do with those factors, of course. According to my source, which is a very reliable source close to the production of Friday the 13th, 2017, this is also the same source that broke to me the fact that the CW was axing the Friday the 13th TV series days, at least days, maybe a week or so before other outlets began to run that story. That source has told me that is in fact one of the reasons why Paramount got cold feet about Friday the 13th, 2017, but that's not the only reason why Paramount execs have put the kibosh on Friday the 13th, 2017. They have looked at Rings, which is the follow-up to, I don't know if it's a reboot, I'm not sure. The last Ring movie that came out was The Ring 2, which was like 13-15 years ago. And their thought process here is the reason why Rings underperformed is because it's just been too long a gap between movies, and people have forgotten about Rings. people don't remember Ring or Ring 2, or they have no idea what Ring or Rings or anything associated with rings is about. We just totally forgot. Look at Friday the 13th. The last Friday the 13th movie that came out was the 2009 remake. That's been about 8 years ago. So you put the same kind of logic that they're putting behind Rings behind Friday the 13th, and they're projecting similar box office returns. Because we've all just forgotten about Jason. We've all just forgotten about Friday the 13th. Does it matter that Friday the 13th is one of the longest running, most well-known, and revered horror movie franchises? Maybe the most well-known and revered horror movie franchise. We've all just forgotten. It's been too long. We won't know what's that mask he's wearing. What even is that? I don't get it. We have the memories of houseflies, according to the Paramount execs. Now that is strike one. That's one reason why Friday the 13th, 2017 is dead. According to my source, that's only one reason. That's strike one. Strike two has to do with the fact that the studio feels like there's not enough time to properly see this project through, to properly market it and promote it before the end of this year. Now, keep in mind, Paramount made this deal with Warner Brothers. It had to do with the Christopher Nolan movie Interstellar, where Paramount got the rights to release as many Friday the 13th movies as they could within a certain number of years. Well, the end year on that deal was 2017. So at the end of this year, their rights to Friday the 13th expire. And they feel like the movie is not ready enough, that the pre-production process isn't moving as swiftly as they would want it to be, and they just don't feel that there's enough time to properly see the project through to the end, through post-production, through editing, through promotion, to get the movie out by October or by the end of 2017, period. That is strike two. Now, I'm on my website now, and I want to read this to you verbatim from my website, which, go over to my website, pizzow.com. I've got a full write-up about this entire debacle over on my website for a more in-depth exploration of the demise of Friday the 13th, 2017. Head over to my website and check that out. So, strike three, according to my source, is this pending litigation between basically Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, who wrote the original Friday the 13th. And their companies, you've got Manny Company, which was a successor of Georgetown Productions, and Horror Inc., basically versus Victor Miller. Now, I'm going to read this verbatim from my website. I'm also sure that most of you are aware of the pending litigation between Manny Company, a successor of Georgetown Productions, and Horror Inc., and original Friday the 13th screenwriter Victor Miller over controlling rights to the property. Initial speculation was that the litigation would not be a roadblock for the production of the new film. That speculation, according to my source, is not entirely true. Victor Miller is asking for creative control of everything Friday the 13th. Even though there hasn't been a new Friday the 13th film since 2009, licensing of merchandise with the name Friday the 13th or bearing the likeness of Jason Voorhees is worth millions. According to my source, these kinds of suits happen regularly, and 99% of them are settled out of court. However, and with so much money on the line, this lawsuit could go on for an indeterminate length of time, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the production and release of a new Friday the 13th film, but more importantly, its product licensing. Strike three. Now keep in mind, nothing has been confirmed by the studio. People are still pointing fingers at the underwhelming performance of Rings at the box office. According to other websites, they've not brought up anything having to do with the litigation or really with the timetable to get the film out before the end of 2017. So really, at this point, everything is just more or less speculation. No hard facts have come out from Paramount or anybody openly associated with the Friday the 13th, 2017 film as to why that film is dead. However, and I will reiterate, this is a very reliable source close to the production of Friday the 13th, 2017, and they've broken news to me in the past days, if not weeks, before it's broke to other news organizations, even though not really a news organization. But, yeah, Friday the 13th, 2017 is dead. That's what we know. We know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I've been so pessimistic about this movie ever since, for years. Because keep in mind, this movie has languished in production limbo for years. And it just seemed like the Platinum Dunes people, Brad Fuller, who was behind the making of the film on the ground level, were overthinking it. They were trying to jump on fleeting trends like 3D or found footage. Keep in mind, at one point, they were going to do a found footage movie where we see everything firsthand through Jason's POV because a victim shoved a camera into his eye socket. They had that script written. They were going to make that movie. No joke. They discussed 3D. They talked about, at one point, exploring Jason's backstory and coming up with a supernatural explanation as to why he can't die. They just bungled and mismanaged and just... They had years to make this movie and they couldn't do it. And we're talking about essentially a pretty simple, standard slasher movie. And I just think there's no excuse for that. Absolutely no excuse for that. And ultimately it's us. It's the fans who, the fan reaction that I've observed hasn't really been shock or disbelief. It's been anger and relief. And I get it. I get it. And I'm kind of at the point now where, maybe this series is cursed. I don't know. But honestly, I would rather have no Friday the 13th than another bad Friday the 13th, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, next year, 2018, the rights will revert back to Warner Brothers. I mean, we can just keep our fingers crossed that they will put a movie into production and see it through, more thoroughly than Paramount and Platinum Dunes did. But as I said in my article on the website, we see how well the Warner execs have handled the DC Cinematic Universe and that series. And anyway, let me know your thoughts on the demise of Friday the 13th, 2017. Let me know, how are you feeling? Did you see this coming a mile away? Were you optimistic? Were you pessimistic? Were you like me and you'll believe it when you're sitting in the theater and the lights go down and you see the new Friday the 13th come up on screen? That was the only way I was going to believe it. Let me know down in the comments section below. I'll do follow-ups as more information becomes available. And so stay tuned. Head over to my website, pizzal.com. That link's right here. That link's also in the description for a more detailed, full-blown write-up about the death of Friday the 13th, 2017. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. They're also right around here. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.